Hi, I'm Greg Meszaros. I'm Director of the Austin Water Utility, and we're here today to present our budget material for the fiscal year 2014. And we can begin. From a department overview perspective, Austin Water is responsible for providing the community with safe drinking water, wastewater services, as well as reclaimed water. And we've had many accomplishments over the last year. Our utility continues to be recognized with excellence in terms of the environmental programs that we have, our conservation programs. We're seeing a lot of our capital improvement projects advance. We completed our downtown tunnel. Our largest capital improvement project, Water Treatment Plant 4, will be completed in 2014. We provide very high quality pre-softened drinking water and many, many other things for the community. From a budget perspective, these two graphs provide utility revenue summaries and uses. In essence, on the revenue side, our revenues are forecasted to go up with the budget through a combination of natural customer growth as well as rate increases that I'll describe in a little bit. Those increased dollars are projected to go to increases in our operation and maintenance departments, as well as about a $10 million increase in our debt that we use to invest in capital improvements. A few more details on our revenue highlights. We're proposing in this budget that water service revenue would increase by $10.5 million. That works out to about a 7.4% increase. That is higher than we had forecasted originally in the spring, and predominantly due to continued restrictions for the drought. I'll speak more on the drought later, but we are in really the very worst drought that Central Texas has ever experienced. In response to that, we've been restricting water and would continue that restrictions all the way through the fiscal year 2014. That's putting some pressure on our water revenues and cash balances, so we're proposing a slightly higher than originally anticipated water rate increase. On the wastewater services side, we're forecasting a $12.7 million increase. That translates to a 2.3% increase for ratepayers. We'll go into a little more details, but it's really more on commercial and large customers. Residential increases on the rate for wastewater are very, very modest. Lastly, we are forecasting an increase in rates for our reclaimed water. That's a very, very small utility. It's a utility that we use to help in conservation and reusing water from our wastewater plants to avoid taking the water out of our drinking water system. Other miscellaneous fees will be going up, capital recovery fees, other reserve funds by about $8.3 million. A few of our cost drivers for 2014, as I mentioned in the introduction, debt service increases of about $10 million to fund our capital improvement programs. Some of the costs that we use to manage our short-term borrowing are increasing, and we're forecasting that being one of the drivers of increased revenues. We're transferring $3.4 million more to the general fund. Electric service costs and chemicals are up about $3.2 million. We're working very closely with our Public Works Department. They do all of the restoration work whenever we need to repair a water main or a sewer or a valve or a hydrant. They go out and restore that work. We've had a backlog of some cut restorations that we need to have for the streets, and these dollars are going to be used to reduce that backlog. We're continuing to grow our revenue reserves. We established a new Revenue Stability Reserve Fund last year, and we'll be adding $2.5 million to that. Miscellaneous contracted services and maintenance is up $2 million. We're increasing our transfer to our Reclaimed Water Fund. Again, that's a subsidized fund where we encourage people to hook up to reclaimed water at lower than cost rates. General compensation increases for employees and health insurance, city admin cost, transferred economic development fund, as well as an increase in our grants for low-income housing on lateral repairs are other cost drivers. A few savings to mention. We are reducing our cash funding of our CIP. We had balances last year that allowed us to increase cash funding to our CIP, and so this year we're returning that more to our historic norms, and we're seeing reductions there. We have optimized our cost for customer billing and care that we receive through Austin Energy. That's resulted in a $1.3 million reduction. The Budget Office has worked to reduce our transfer to the Sustainability Fund for affordable housing by $1.3 million. Other related transfer reductions for 311 call center, as well as reductions in fleet, fuel, and maintenance are forecast for our budget. Our 2014 budget does include increase in staffing. A good chunk of that is an increase for manning our new water treatment plant 4. We're really scheduled for that to go into service in the summer of 2014 and are adding 17 new FTEs for that. We'll have a few more FTEs in 2015 to add, but this year's budget will just about complete our staffing. We're also annexing several new areas, in particular Lost Creek, River Place Mud, and those annexations are coming with several large facilities for drinking water, wastewater that we'll need to staff up for. We are making some strategic investments. We're carrying out several council directions. They asked us to implement a well ordinance. We're taking staff to implement hazardous material cleanup steps. We're developing a large valve turning program. Right now we have thousands of large valves that are really needed to operate during emergency conditions when we need to shut down our large transmission systems. We really don't have a proactive program in place to operate those valves in non-emergency conditions to make sure that they do work in emergencies. And so we're proposing a good chunk of staff to start those programs, increasing our technical training, increasing our safety for our 1,000+ workers. So some of the areas that we're investing in our staffing plan for 2014. This table here just provides an overall summary of our budget compared to fiscal year 2012, fiscal year 13 estimated, and then our fiscal year 14 proposed. And I won't go through all of these numbers, but it just provides some of the major categories of cost and expense and final ending balances that we are projecting, as well as staffing levels. Switching now to our capital improvement program. We're showing our 5-year CIP here. It's forecast to be $985.7 million. That is down significantly from previous 5-year forecasts. We've been as high as $1.5 billion, but as we've been completing key capital improvement projects, Austin Clean Water Program, Downtown Tunnel, Plant 4 will be completed in 2014. We are seeing our 5-year CIP moving below $1 billion. For the 2014 year, it's $237.3 million. You can see in the table that a significantly higher percentage of that is in water as compared to wastewater, and that's really due to Plant 4 really pushing hard to be completed in 2014 and additional spending there. As the forecast period goes out, you can see that water and wastewater are much more closely aligned in terms of total capital investment. This particular table and associated pie chart show how our CIP spending on the water side is spread out. Most of the work is for bread and butter items, replacing water lines, modernizing our existing plants, making improvements at pumps and reservoirs, relocating utilities for new transportation projects. We do have a chunk for Plant 4, $83.3 million. We expect that to be the bulk of the spending in 2014 for Plant 4. There'll be a little bit more in 2015, but the plant will be in service by the summer of 2014 and will be essentially complete with that project. On the wastewater side, again, this table and particular chart breaks down the various categories of capital improvement spending. By and large, on the wastewater side, the bulk of our CIP is going to maintaining our existing assets, maintaining and modernizing existing treatment plants, rehabbing sewer lines, rehabbing lift stations, vehicles, relocations for transportation projects. That's really accounts for the vast majority of our wastewater CIP investments. On rate increases, this table sums up the 3 rate increases. Water, 7.4%, wastewater, 2.3%, reclaimed water, 16.5%, and again, that only hits, we only have 55 reclaimed customers, so that really just impacts a very small group, and I'll speak more about reclaimed in a little bit. Combined, if you add all those up and spread it out, it's about a 4.9% total increase on utility rates. We're also adding to our revenue reserve fund surcharge, increasing that from 12 cents to 15 cents per 1,000 gallons as we're building additional revenue reserves for the future. From a water rate design perspective, last year's budget included significant changes associated with recommendations from a joint committee of citizens. Council accepted those recommendations for fiscal year 13, and for our fiscal year 14 budget, those recommendations are continuing. That includes system-wide fixed revenue goals at 20%, the implementation of a residential tiered fixed minimum charge that continues in 2014. We're maintaining a volumetric block spread of $11 from the lowest block rate for residentials to the highest is $11. The recommendation was to keep it at that level, $11 spread, not increase that into the future, and we're maintaining that. We're also continuing to build our Revenue Stability Reserve Fund, as I've described in previous slides, and also operating reserves on our operating fund targeted at 60 days. As always, as we have the last several years, our residential customers have been below their cost of service, and we've been slowly raising them to the cost of service, reducing subsidies from other rate classes to the residential class, and we're continuing that in 2014. We'll be complete with that transition by 2019. This table peers a little more closely at residential water rates, and you really see the various charges, our minimum meter charge, our monthly tiered fixed charge, as well as our volumetric charges for the amount of water you use. You can see how it compares from 2013 to 2014. Really, the fixed fees are staying stable. It's only the volumetrics that are changing, and you can see on the table how the different blocks are going up across the different uses of water. Here's how that translates into residential water bill impacts. If you kind of take a look at the table here, you see if you have a 5/8" meter, which is typical size for residential, what our typical bills would be in 2013 as opposed to 2014 and what the variance is. Intuitively, if you use less water, you pay less money, your rate increase is significantly less. For example, a customer that uses 2,000 gallons of water a month would see a little more than about $1.24 per month increase. If you use very large volumes of water, if you're a heavy irrigator at your particular residential, you'll see significantly higher increases from the proposed water rates. This table helps show that a little bit more. It's a little bit of a complicated graph, but the red bars really indicate residential customers overlaid with our various block rates. And the takeaway here is that a strong majority of our residential customers are very low water users, and as a result, we'll see smaller increases in water rate in 2014. For example, just looking at this, you can see that over 53% of our customers use less than 6 gallons per month. And again, as I described previously, those type of customers will see lower total dollar increases as opposed to very large volumetric users, which see significantly higher dollar increases as they use water in 2014. Switching now to wastewater rates, very simple on the wastewater side. We don't have the kind of block rates that you do in conservation pricing on wastewater. It's much more direct there. On the residential side, it's very, very small increases. No increases in the monthly mixed minimum charges, fixed fees. And on the volumetrics, we only have 2 block rates for residential, and the one's going up just a penny a month, and the other one's going up 2 cents a month. So really, really nominal increases on residential wastewater rates for fiscal year 2014. And this simply shows that from a typical residential wastewater bill. Again, if you use a certain amount of wastewater, you can see how much it'll go up a month. It's hardly worth mentioning in certain areas. If you use 2,000 gallons, you would see your residential bill go up 2 cents a month. It's really nominal on the wastewater side. And this shows water and wastewater together for a residential customer, an example residential customer that uses 8,000 gallons of water, 4,700 gallons of wastewater. This would be your bill. If you use more water and more wastewater, it'll be higher. If you use less, it'll be lower. This is just one of those examples comparing our current 2013 rates to proposed 2014. We have been noting that we do take special steps to keep water and wastewater affordable for our low-income customers, those customers that really need access to essential water and wastewater services at a time when we have been raising rates. This table compares over now what's about a 6 to 7 year progression. We've implemented a customer assistance program where we waive the fixed fees as well as tiered fixed fees for water and wastewater customers. And you can see that that's really had the net effect over now a 6 year period of essentially keeping low-income customers' water rates and wastewater rates flat. Really, a customer in 2014 would pay just about $1 more than they paid in 2008. So over that whole period, it's only been a 1.4 increase for our very lowest income customers. This particular graph shows our water and wastewater rates combined compared to other Central Texas utilities as well as other Texas and national utilities. The red bar indicates how we compare from the customer assistance program, that is the low-income customers, and the yellow bar is how we compare for non-customers, non-low-income customers that use 8,000 gallons of water and 4,700 gallons of wastewater. I want to emphasize again that if you use less water and wastewater, you'll be more towards the lower end. If you use more water and wastewater, particularly very high volumes of water, you'll be significantly higher. I want to speak now to reclaimed water rates. This affects a very narrow segment of our customer base, just 55 customers that we've been growing, but uses reclaimed water, particularly large irrigation, golf courses, cooling tanks, others that we've been trying to conserve drinking water and switch to reclaimed. We are trying to reduce the subsidy. We keep reclaimed water rates lower than cost, significantly lower than cost, as an enticement to get people to hook up, but we are trying to reduce that subsidy from currently 78% to a lower amount. We'd like to get over a period of years to have reclaimed rates be equal to about 40% of the potable rate, so they'd only be about 40% of what you pay for the drinking water rate. Right now they're at 26%, so we are proposing an accelerated increase in reclaimed rates to reduce that subsidy and bring them up to a 40% of potable level. And then as a part of that plan, we are proposing a 16.5% increase in reclaimed rates in 2014. But it's on a very small base. Right now we charge $1.50 per 1,000 gallons. That would compare to roughly $5 per 1,000 gallons for commercial drinking water. And we're seeing that proposed to go to $1.73. As directed by council resolution, we have crafted a separate standalone reclaimed rate for parkland. Any park-related facility, be it a park or a golf course, if they've switched to reclaimed water, we are going to recommend to the council, per the direction in the resolution, a reclaimed rate. Just for them, the reclaimed rate would be $1 per 1,000 gallons as compared to the reclaimed retail rate proposed at $1.73. So all PARD facilities would move to that rate. Some PARD facilities, as an example, the Clay Kaiser Golf Course is currently at a contract rate of 41 cents. They'd move to that dollar. Their cost would go up. However, many PARD facilities would move from their $1.50 reclaimed rate to $1. The net effect of all this is this would help neutralize a $300,000 increase that PARD would have experienced had they stayed at the reclaimed retail water rates. This new standalone PARD rate does help kind of phase in those increases, so they'll see, in essence, a very, very minimal increase in FY 2014. And we're going to continue to look for ways to phase in future increases for PARD. We'd like to ultimately see them get back up to the system-wide reclaimed rate, but that we'll do that over a period of years to help phase that in. As I start to conclude today, I would really leave with one thought for the future as we look into 2014 and beyond. As I mentioned a couple of times throughout the presentation, Central Texas is experiencing the very worst drought in its history, significantly worse the last 5.5 years than even what's considered the worst drought of the 1950s. This drought really started in 2008. That's the last time that the Highland Lakes that provide water for our community were full. As it sits today, those lakes are at just 36% full and forecast to continue to drop lower as we move into the fall in 2014. We expect to hit an all-time low in terms of water sales, per capita water sales in 2014, as well as 2013. We've been in stage 2, 1 day per week watering for nearly fully the last 2 years, and we're forecasting that to continue throughout all of 2014. With likely additional restrictions to come. So we're expecting many, many challenges as we work as a community and unite together to get through this really terrible drought. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on our utility in terms of new programs, as well as perhaps the need that we'll be closely monitoring in the future, additional drought rates to get us through this time financially, as we see and we need to restrict water to get through the drought until the lakes recover. And Austin Water will continue to be very proactive in terms of responding to this drought and working with the community throughout 2014 and beyond. For more information, you can contact my office. We have contact information here. My Chief Financial Officer, David Anders, we have his contact information. And any media inquiries, our PIO office is listed here. And that really concludes my presentation for today. I look forward to answering questions as we work through this budget process over the months ahead. Thank you.